Welcome all, this is Ken. This video is a briefing for the September 8th FTX. The FTX staging area will be Gooch Gap, which is on the Appalachian Trail north of Dahlonega. For those that don't know where Gooch Gap is, if you have questions, you can contact me, you can Google it. There's a couple different ways to get to Gooch Gap. The way I would recommend for most of us would be to come up through Dahlonega on Georgia 60, follow Georgia 60 up to where it crosses Woody Gap, which the AT crosses there at Woody Gap and Highway 60. Go past that on Highway 60 to this lake, which is Woody Lake. There's a well-maintained gravel road that dumps in right in front of Woody Lake. Follow that road all the way down and eventually you will end up at Gooch Gap. Gooch Gap is very obvious on that dirt road. The AT crosses there, so it's pretty hard to miss. The FTX will kick off at 9 a.m., but I would like everyone to target 8:30 to be at Gooch Gap. If you run a little bit late, that's fine. Formally, we'll kick things off around 9 a.m. Regarding equipment to bring, since we haven't gone over the individual team equipment yet, for the new members, recommend bringing what you would normally bring if you're going to be out for a full day hike. We require that everyone have some sort of orange clothing. An orange vest would be fine. If you have an orange shirt, you could wear that. We recommend that even when it's not hunting season. It allows folks to see us and it allows us to see each other more clearly. We recommend that everyone wear a long sleeve shirt. You can roll your sleeves up. But when we're going cross country, it's important to have long sleeve shirt, and long pants are critical. When we go off trail cross country, there's going to be briars, there's going to be other things that'll tear your legs up if you don't have long pants. Make sure you bring along some snacks, enough water. Recommend a couple liters of water per person at least. If you have individual items that you need, like EpiPens, obviously make sure you bring those, and also make sure you let the team leader know individually if you are carrying an EpiPen or some other medication that we need to know about as a team. The day will be divided into two parts. The morning we'll have some classroom review at Gooch Gap on some basic map reading and compass skills. Again, we highly recommend that you take the time between now and the FTX to go through those videos that we had sent links to prior. Review that information. It will make the morning a lot easier and quicker. Depending on how long the review takes, the afternoon portion will kick off either after lunch, or hopefully we can actually get started closer to 11 o'clock. The second part of the day will consist of a guided land navigation exercise overlaid with a simulated hasty search, route search mission. The mission scenario involves a young adult who is in the process of writing a trail guide for the old Appalachian Trail as it stood a number of years ago. The last that we know, the individual was at Gooch Gap and moving in the direction of Cooper Gap. Their intent was to walk along the old trail bed between those two locations and document that travel. The individual never did or never did make it to Cooper Gap, as far as we know, and their vehicle is still at Gooch Gap. The incident commander has asked our team to do a hasty / route search between Gooch Gap and Blackwell Creek along the old AT trail bed. As we look at this map here, this is actually the 2016, which is the latest version of the Forestry Service topographical map for the area. Down here is Gooch Gap, and the AT is denoted by these red dash lines. So of note on this current Forestry Service map, there's actually two trails leaving Gooch Gap. One here and one leading up to this little black square, which is the old Gooch Gap shelter location. There's also a spring here, and then we follow the AT where it crosses Blackwell Creek. Keep in mind, this is the current Forestry Service map. However, that map is no longer accurate. Now, I'm going to show you how incorrect that map is. So, I'm going to transition to Map Builder Topo, and you'll see and I'm going to leave a little bit of both on here. I'll try to go all the way. This is a current map which is accurate, showing the Appalachian Trail coming out of Cooper Gap. Notice there's just one, it doesn't show two. Following and crossing over Blackwell Creek right here. Now if I switch back, and you can see now the huge difference. I'll put both of them so you can kind of see both of them a little bit. So you can see there's a discrepancy in the AT through here between the old AT and the new AT. Huge difference here where the old AT cut way up here. The new AT went straight across. The new AT crosses Blackwell Creek right here. The old AT crossed Blackwell Creek way up here. Big difference. Also of note, the new Gooch Gap shelter actually is not very close to Gooch Gap, but it's right here, versus the old shelter was right here near Gooch Gap. So big difference there. So here's another representation of the old AT, still shown on the latest Forestry Service map, versus the new AT. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference there. So our mission is to come out of Gooch Gap, walk along the old AT. We might take the time to see if we can figure out where the old Gooch Gap shelter is. Attempt to find and follow the old trail bed up through this finger and this spring that's on this finger here on the map. Follow it along this elongated hilltop. Some maps actually show two tops of the hill, one here, one here. This map just shows it as one elongated hill, a saddle, a more prominent hill, and then the AT comes down, and there's a trail junction right here before the AT crosses over Blackwell Creek. So our mission is to follow this, and as we go along, we're going to be moving as a single element, and we will let all the new members have an opportunity along here to be the point person and be responsible to find the next either location, a point like these circles here, or follow a particular terrain feature. So everyone will have an opportunity to be in the hot seat, so to speak, as far as navigation. As we move along, there'll be opportunities where as a team we'll be stopping and we'll be pointing out features both on the map and then what they look like on the terrain. For example, right in here you can see there's a very prominent drainage here, or draw, and it doesn't necessarily look like a whole lot on the map, but it'll be pretty obvious when we cross through here, like, wow, it looks a lot more intense when you're walking through here than what it does on the map. And that's the kind of thing that we want everyone to ultimately pick up on, and is part of a bigger subject called terrain association, being able to look at that map and then have a mental picture. So these little draws here on the side of this hill don't look like much on the map, but they're pretty prominent when you're actually, if you're walking down that draw, it'd be real obvious what's going on. And as we walk along here, and most of the team, myself included, I have not walked the old AT through here. So it will be a recon for most of the team. It's not as if we walked this last weekend and now we're taking folks back through here. So it really will be a little bit of a recon for all of us. The intent is to walk. I'd like to see where this trail junction is here, where the old AT crosses Blackwell, come down this old trail, or what's left of it, intersect the new AT, follow the new AT back, visit Gooch Gap Shelter, then follow the new AT back to our staging area, base camp at Gooch Gap. The goal would be to get back at Gooch Gap no later than 5 to 6 in the evening. Can't give you a definitive time, depends on how the afternoon progresses. We could be early, potentially a little bit later. Obviously, we want to be out of the area well before nightfall. I've had a number of people ask me, what type of mapping software do you use or do you recommend? There's a lot of stuff out there, and I use a number of different tools, but my favorite now is something called sartopo.com. I mentioned a link in a prior video, or actually a prior email, referenced a website, CalTopo, CalTopo.com. Sartopo is run by CalTopo, and it's basically CalTopo with some additional features specific to search and rescue teams. What you're looking at here is actually Sartopo, and it allows you to do some really cool things. You create an account, and my account is under my email, khuey@gmail.com. I can then pull up an area like this on the map. I can plot things on the map, like these circles are things that I've plotted. You have the ability with Sartopo to add different markers and objects to your map, like there's an object for clues, area assignments for SAR teams, range rings, bearing lines, a lot of cool things in Sartopo that you don't actually have in the caltopo.com. You can also take tracks and waypoints from actual hikes that you've done, upload them into the system. For example, these markers here, Gooch Gap Shelter, is a waypoint that I had created before when I was out on the trail. I can go down here and add, I've added some tracks where I've walked the AT, the new AT before, so it's overlaid that on top of my map. The other cool feature with Sartopo is I have a base layer map here, which right now I've set to the Forestry Service topo map. So I can change that. Actually, I was on the 2013, but the 2016, it really isn't any different. But I can set a base map, and then I can add layers. So I can add up to 3 layers. So right now, the Forestry Service Topo 2016 version is what you're seeing. But if I go over here to Map Builder Topo, which is one of the layers, and I change this from 0 to 100%, it will suddenly change and show me map builder topo. And then if I go 50%, I'll be able to see both of them kind of overlaid on top of each other. Or I can go to the USGS traditional old school topo map. I can switch to, for example, a street map. I can change these overlays if I wanted to show, let's say, aerial photography, aerial imagery. I can do that. Make that 100%. So now I'm basically looking at an aerial view with my overlays on top of that aerial view map. So it's a really, really cool tool to allow you to do some really neat things. And the cool thing is when I upload my tracks or I create these waypoints or these other objects on the map, it automatically saves them. And I can name the map if I want to, but it will automatically save them, and I can access them later by going over here, clicking on my account, and you can see these are some saved maps that I have here. So for example, if I go to an old map, Blood Mountain Recon, that we did back in 2016, it will pull up that map. These tracks and these waypoints that I've uploaded were all from an exercise where we were out doing a pre-planning mission where we were noting things like where we saw campsites, a campsite that had water, multi-campsite, trail junctions, plus we actually walked the trail, and so we had our GPSs going and we uploaded those tracks to confirm that the trails were properly noted. So it's really cool. So there's a lot of historical information that we can upload to SAR Topo. And by doing this over time, when we get called out to assist with a search, if we've been in that area in the past, we can pull up SAR Topo, see all the information from any prior activity in that area, and it may aid us in the actual mission to have the latest information possible. The other great feature of SAR Topo is this is all good if you have a computer, but what about when we're out in the field? So here, let's take this map here, and if I want to print, I can go over here, print, and print to PDF. And it's going to pull up the map, and it's going to show me a red area that's shaded. Now, over here on the left, important thing is make sure your scale is set to 1 to 24,000, which is the scale map that we would normally use for land navigation. And if I click on this red area and I move it, I'm sorry, you got to go to the middle where that little red circle is. Then I can move it around, and basically when I print it, the printed map is going to cover that area that's shaded here. So I'll drop it right here, and it's important for where it says grid lines, check this UTM box. So we want to have UTM grid lines superimposed on the map. Make sure your datum is WGS 84, which is our normal go-to datum, and it's in our GPSs by default. And then I will click down here, generate PDF. And what I eventually get back is the actual PDF image of the map. It's got the UTM grid coordinates on the side of the map. It has our magnetic declination diagram down here, -6 degrees. It's got the map scales, the datum, WGS 84, the scale of the map. Now it's important, it's also noticed those UTM grid lines are superimposed on top of the map. Now the critical part when you're going to print a map like this, whether we download or we just directly print, but when we get to the point where we're going to print the map, you're going to get a dialog for the printing and the PDF. And it's important that there should be something, and it may be worded differently, but with this particular tool it says the scale and it's got fit to page. You want to make sure that this fit to page or something like that is not checked. If I check it, if you watch the map and I check it, the map changes a little bit. Now, why is that important? Is if I print the map, let's say I accidentally left fit to page and I printed that map and I pull out my grid reader and I overlay it on top of that map, what should be 1,000-meter grid square is not going to match up with my 1 to 24,000 grid reader. It's going to be a little bit small or a little bit big. So it's important to not let the print tool fit it to the page. We want it to print exactly as it was generated. So now if I print this map, I lay my grid reader over it, it's going to match up exactly with these 1,000-meter grid squares. And that's important to do whenever you're printing a map. Pull your grid reader out, make sure that it was printed to the proper scale before you take it out in the field and realize that, oops, I'm going to have a hard time plotting my UTM grid coordinates. Hope this helps, and look forward to talking to y'all later, and there'll probably be a little more information coming out before the FTX, but it should be a long day, but it should be a fun day. Look forward to seeing y'all out there. Bye-bye.